at least 6 to 12 hours a day. I eat, sleep, and dream quilts. But today I'm going to try something different, and I hope you guys play with me. I want to do a quilt versus. So I want to compare machine quilts to applique quilts. So I'm actually competing with myself. An applique quilt is a quilt that you prepare basically by hand. So you construct it basically by hand. Can you hear me? Yes. A machine quilt is a quilt that you construct mostly by sewing machine. On the piece of paper, you have 7 categories. And every time I ask you who won, I want you to pick which quilt you like best. The applique quilt or the machine quilt. The first set of quilts I want to show you is small, but they are mighty. If you've seen my work before, you know I love Baltimore album quilts, which is an old technique from the 1800s. They are huge. They're very detailed, hand-quilted, hand-piece quilts. Now this little guy is not a Baltimore album. She's Baltimore album-like. And she is hand-pieced and hand-quilted. Now, versus this little guy over here, and yes, you heard me say little guy. I'm a girl mom, and all my quilts are female, except I have 3 or 4 that are male, and this little guy's a male. The name of this quilt is called Tree-Dimensional, T-R-E-E dimensional, and the artist that created it is George Siciliano. I love his work. Each one of these blocks are 4 inches, and each one has 62 pieces in it. Oh, God. It is intense. I love this quilt. I love his work. And it is machine pieced and machine quilted. And a side note is his original pattern was 3 inches. I upgraded to 4. Who won? Applique or machine? Wait, let's see. Machine. Applique. Pick which one won. The next grouping is called whole cloth quilt. Now, you heard my New York twang? So I'm going to spell whole quilt. It's W-H-O-L-E, because I have a daughter who chuckles when I say that, because she doesn't hear that word. A whole cloth quilt is an old technique that's probably hundreds of years old, and blocks do not make these quilts. Stitching makes the quilts. In this case, let's start with this one. The stitching makes the quilts.
Wow.
And use the traditional technique is to use natural thread and natural fabric. However, quilters are creative, and now you'll find them in all kinds of fabrics and all kinds of threads and all kinds of colors. Now, my creativity had a little bit of beads, and this one has a lot more beads. These quilts are hand-pieced and hand-quilted. But something said to me, try it with an embroidery machine. So I decided to try the same idea with a embroidery machine with purple thread and purple variegated thread. Purple variegated thread is thread that has more colors in it. It gives a whole different feel and a whole different emotion. Who won? Applique or machine?
That one's machine.
Okay, the next grouping is Hawaiian. Hawaiian quilts look like snowflakes. This one I'm definitely going to need a little help with. I have 2 Hawaiian quilts. That's hand done. Hawaiian quilts look like snowflakes. Okay? And you want to hold this one? I can use the same. They look like snowflakes. So, and they're hand pieced. And if you notice all the stitching around, that's called echoing. That's also Hawaiian traditional technique. But we are very creative and we have to change things. And so the center is not Hawaiian. That is another technique. And this is called sashiko. It is a Japanese technique. This quilt is hand pieced and hand quilted. But this one is also a Hawaiian quilt, but this is a little different. It is hand pieced, but machine quilted. It's a little bit different. Both quilts were purchased by the Pacific Rim Insurance. I'm an insurance agent, you heard that. Pacific Rim Companies, and this fabric was purchased in Hawaii. Now, compare that to this quilt is the machine version that it's competing with. It's called an etcher. It's upside down. This quilt is called the etcher. Etcher is not the name of the quilt, it's the name of a type of quilts. The gentleman who created this, his name is Merchant Etcher. Now, I mispronounced his first name. It starts with an M and then an S. He was born in 1892 and died in 1972. He was a Dutch mathematician artist. He did not quilt. But somebody had the great idea to take his artwork and make a tessellation quilt. This is a tessellation quilt. Wow. What that is you take a design and you do it over and over and over again to fill out the quilt. This quilt is machine quilted and machine pieced. Now, when you look at this quilt, you turn it around. When you look at it, you think that the repetition is the Y design or the box. It is not. It is the triangle that is done 192 times. This quilt is hand, machine pieced and machine quilted. Who won? Hawaii or this one? The next set of groupings is this quilt. This one is big. It's based upon this book. It's called the Celtic Quilt Design. Thank you very much, ladies. This is a quilt fairy tale. It's based upon an Irish witch that turned 4 little children into swans, 4 swans. I did most of the blocks in this book, and all the blocks is about how this witch made this poor mother's life miserable. But the quilting technique that she used is called the Celtic bias technique, which is this. It is a very tedious technique, but I love tedious, and I love making this quilt. This quilt is hand pieced and hand quilted. It took a while. It was this quilt took a while.
Look at this. Wow.
It's by hand, 100% by hand. You're talking probably 9 months, probably in that neighborhood. You have to fold it. I'll catch it later. This one, it's being compared to, this is a quilt of my design, and the quilt artist who created this her name is Carol Dope, one of my favorite artists. It's based upon a book of 50 stars, and each star was named after a state. My favorite star by her is the Ohio Star. I took that star, I broke it up in half. I added some other stars, I added some flanges, I added some borders, some crystals. I judged it around in my brain, and I created a quilt. This quilt is machine piece and hand quilted. Who won?
That was, or
The fairy tale.
I just voted. Wow.
That was the fairy tale? That is after, that's hand. Okay. Now I kind of cheated with the next one because this one was so big, I took two little applique guys over here. Two. Let's talk about the first applique, which is this one. This one is based upon this one. This one is very special to me. It's called The Ancient Art of Applique, Patterns from the Tent Makers of Cairo. They call this one the tent makers of Egypt. Egypt tent makers, quilters. I love this quilt. It took all of my expertise to make this quilt. It is intense. I love this quilt. I've made about 2 or 3 of the tent makers quilts. If you look at through the book, you'll see all the guys. They're guys. They're all men. She's still female. She's still a she. I don't care. I love this quilt. This quilt is hand pieced and hand quilted.
Wow.
Now, this one I saw on Pinterest. A good quilt day for me is sitting on Pinterest, looking at a quilt, and going from picture to quilt. The center came from one quilt picture, and the border came from another picture. Good quilt day. This quilt is hand pieced and hand quilted. Now I'm comparing it to this guy over here, this lady. Depending on what day it is, it has 2 different names. Sometimes I call it when Jenny meets Carol, and sometimes it's when Carol meets Jenny. I get confused. Get over. The pattern is based upon Jenny Byer, one of my favorite quilters, and Carol Dope. You heard me mention her name before. The pattern is going diagonal. Is Jenny Byer. And the pattern's going in the middle of Carol Doakes. The fabric is Jenny Byer. She specializes in border prints, which is the fabric going around. And if you get a chance to look at the quilt, you'll notice that each of these quilts material look different. It's the same fabric as this. It's just how I cut it up and used it. This quilt is machine pieced and hand quilted. I love this quilt. Who won? Machine or applique? Now I have my ombre wonders. This is the ombre wonder. Sitting on Pinterest, going down the rabbit hole. I saw this quilt, and if you've ever been on Pinterest, you know if you see something, save it with a quickness, because if it goes away, it's done.
That's the truth.
But, yeah, it is. But I saw this, and I went, oh, that's a cute quilt. And then I saw it again the next day, and I went, that's a cute quilt. And then the third time, that's a cute quilt. By the 5th day, I went, I give up. I got it. She's hand pieced and hand quilted. I got the memo.
Okay.
Now, if you notice, the center is done different. Well, you're gonna see this again. I used a different pattern. You're gonna see this again. I love this quilt. She is so pretty. Now the other ombre, the machine ombre version is this. This quilt is, the company that makes this quilt is called Quilt Art, Q-W-I-L-T Art.
Oh, my goodness.
I have quite a few of their fabric, their patterns. Their patterns they look hard. But they do require, their instructions are pretty good. They do require some skill, but I love the feel of it. I love the flow of it, and it does have applique, so I do like that too. But I thought this would go nice with the other ombre. This quilt is machine pieced and machine quilted. Who won?
Let's see the front of that.
Applique or machine?
Look at that.
That's hard, Jackie. You're making us.
That's hard?
Really hard.
If you think this hard, then the last one is the hardest.
Oh, dear.
The last one, I missed two.
The last grouping is Affairs of the Heart. Affairs of the Heart is very special to me. I think I'm gonna put this in a quilt show next July.
Ooh.
Stuff like that.
Wow.
Stuff like that? I don't think it has a right or wrong.
Well, they're asleep.
Oh, it's asleep, okay. But I don't think it has a right, it doesn't have a right or wrong. I saw, I'm looking for, you see the half, the half
Yeah.
white and the half gray?
Yeah.
I was at a retreat and my table mate had this on her quilt. Now her quilt was way more complex than mine. I'm sorry, let's start all over again. I saw this at a retreat at my table mate's quilt, but her quilt was very complex, but the theme was still there, half white, half black. And I don't even think her quilt was half black and white, but that concept stayed in my brain, just marinating, stayed for a rainy day. But one day I saw this book, this pattern called Affairs of the Heart. This pattern is 100% applique. But I did not like her layout. I'm trying to find the layout for her. Her layout had all the blocks lined up like little soldiers. And I wanted it to be separate. I honestly do not know how I came up with that layout. It just came to me. This quilt is, I consider this quilt my everything quilt. It has machine quilt, it has hand quilt, it has machine pieced, it has hand pieced, it has embroidery quilting, it has everything. But for this presentation, we're only gonna look at the applique. We're only looking at the applique. This is one of my favorite quilts, Affairs of the Heart. Compared to the other he quilt in my life, the other male quilt in my life. This is called Ribbon.
Oh, my God.
George Siciliano. You see why I love his work.
Now, what's his name again?
George Siciliano. Paper piece heaven. For quilters who hate paper piecing, you will be miserable. You take the same pattern, he did it, I think, 9 different times. I think it's 9 times. I love this quilt. This quilt is machine pieced and machine quilted. It is amazing.
It is. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
Now this one's hard. Who won? Machine or applique?
Machine. Jeff, you're making us sick. All of they're all marvelous.
Now I think that's the 7th one.
Yeah.
But if you came to my Morgan presentation, I showed you a peacock quilt that was being sandwiched. She's finished. And I needed to show you the finished product. She is so cute. Here she is. Isn't she a beauty?
That's beautiful. Yeah.
She is just a beauty.
Wow.
So I wanted to show
My
that.
goodness.
And if you notice The beads match tail feathers. The smaller the beads, the smaller the feathers.
Man.
It is just beautiful. With that being said, raise your hand. Who picked applique?
I did.
And who picked machine? That's hard. Let's say, who picked machines? Applique? Applique. 1, 2, 3. And who picked machine? Machine 1. The thing is, machine quilting is more complex and a brighter quilt. So, but for me, machine and applique, they warm my heart the same way. I weave them both in at the same time. They're like my children. I love them the same. I want to thank you all for playing with me and living and sharing my quilts that come from my heart, my head, and my hands. Thank you very much.